The howling from my grandparents' woods started calling my brother's name. The next morning, he was gone. I haven't slept through a whole night since I was 10. Not since the summer we went to my grandparents' house in the gut of Kentucky, and my brother walked into the trees and just never came out. They just moved there, my grandparents. My dad said it was for the peace and quiet, but I think he knew they were going there to get a head start on being ghosts. They weren't sick, not yet, but they were old in that way, where they seemed to be fading into the background of their own lives. The drive was 3 hours of humid air, and my parents biting at each other in the front seat. We'd grown up chasing frogs in Ohio creeks, so we weren't afraid of the country. But this wasn't our country. The hills kept folding in on themselves, the roads got narrower, and the trees grew so thick they blotted out the sun. By the time we pulled up the gravel drive, it felt like we'd driven into a different, older world. The house was a sad little box with a spine that was starting to buckle. "Well, here's the palace," my dad said, trying to force some cheer into the dead air. The moment I stepped inside, the breath caught in my chest. It smelled like damp earth and mothballs and something faintly sweet like rotting apples. Dust hung in the air, thick as smoke, swirling in the thin beams of light that managed to stab through the grimy windows. Dad showed us around. My little sister Elodie would sleep in my parents' room. My older brother Cormac, and I got the room right by the front door. A cramped space with 2 beds that looked like they were trying to crowd each other out. "Go on, get outside," Mom said, her voice already sounding tired. "Stretch your legs while we figure out dinner." The backyard was just a patch of scorched grass and a fire pit made of mismatched, crumbling bricks. Cormac, who was 12 and thought he was immortal, immediately scrambled past it and down into the dry creek bed. The summer had been brutal, and the creek was nothing but a skeleton of smooth, pale stones. He started kicking them over. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Sometimes there's still crawdads," he said, not looking up. "They burrow into the mud if there's any damp left." The idea was enough to get me to join him, the hot stones burning through the soles of my sneakers. "What's that little house?" Elodie's voice piped up. We looked up from the creek bed. She was standing in front of a tilted wooden shack a few yards from the woods. "That's the outhouse, El," Cormac called back. "The what?" "The toilet." "You," she said, her nose wrinkling. "I have to pee out here?" I didn't say anything, but my stomach twisted. The thought of squatting in that little box in the pitch black of a country night, no thank you. Before I could go back to my rock flipping, something else caught my eye. Just past the outhouse, at the edge of the property, was a trail. It wasn't a real trail, more like a suggestion of a path that disappeared into the wall of trees. But it was blocked, not with a fence, but with a piece of dirty twine stretched between 2 pines. And hanging from the twine, every few feet, were little wooden figures. They were crudely carved, no two the same. Some looked like twisted animals, all teeth and claws. Others looked like small, screaming people. "What about that?" I asked Cormac, pointing. He straightened up, his face clouded with the same confusion I felt. He stomped up the bank of the creek and I followed, our feet crunching on the dead leaves. We stood at the line of figures, peering into the woods beyond. It got dark so fast in there. The light just gave up a few feet past the tree line. And it was quiet, a deep, listening kind of quiet that felt heavier than sound. I didn't know why, but every cell in my body was screaming at me to go back to the house. Hey Mom's voice was so sharp it felt like a slap. I jumped back from the twine as if it were electric. "Get away from there." "Both of you." Cormac stumbled backward. "What is it, Mom? That's the neighbor's property. You stay on our side of the line, you hear me?" Her voice was tight, thin, scared, but I just nodded. Back home, our neighbors were farmers who threatened to shoot trespassers, so I figured it was just another rule of the country. But looking back, the lie was so obvious. There were no neighbors. There was nothing out here but us and the trees. The rest of the day bled into a dull, sticky evening. After a dinner that tasted like the dusty air in the house, Dad decided we'd have a fire. He got a small blaze going in the pit, the flames spitting and hissing as they ate the dry wood. He gave each of us a stick he'd whittled to a point. We roasted our marshmallows in silence. Elodie was focused on getting the perfect golden brown crust, but I couldn't stop watching Cormac. He wasn't looking at his marshmallow. He wasn't looking at the fire. He was staring past me, out into the impenetrable darkness where the little wooden figures hung on their string. The firelight danced in his wide eyes, and I could feel his fear coming off him like heat. It was a shared secret between us. That place wasn't right. Soon enough, Mom called us in. Dad doused the fire with a bucket of water. The hiss of the steam was deafening, and in an instant, the yard was plunged into absolute black. As we walked toward the weak yellow light of the back door, I saw Cormac stop and whip his head around, staring back into the dark. "What?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just bolted for the house. Seeing my older brother, my brave, stupid brother, run like that lit a fire under my own ass. I scrambled inside right behind him, slamming the screen door shut. Later, I woke up to a sound. At first I thought it was music, some far-off radio. It was a woman's voice, humming a lullaby, the one our mom used to sing to us when we were little. I sat bolt upright. My eyes adjusted to the gloom, and I saw Cormac, already awake. He was sitting up in his bed, ramrod straight, clutching his blanket to his chest. "What is that?" I whispered. "It's been going for a while," he whispered back, his voice trembling. His eyes were locked on the darkened doorway of our room. I listened. The humming was coming from outside, from the back of the house, from the woods. It was Mom's tune, but it was wrong. Thin and reedy, like an old, warped record. It would stop, and for a few seconds there would only be the sound of the crickets. Then it would start again, and then the voice changed. It stopped humming. It started to speak. "Cormac," it was a whisper, but it sounded like it was right outside our window. It was our mother's voice, exactly her voice, sweet, gentle. "Cormac, honey, it's time to come in now." I looked at my brother. He was shaking so hard the bed frame rattled. But he wasn't just scared, he was listening. His head was cocked, like he was trying to understand. Like a part of him believed it. The voice kept calling, over and over, a sweet, patient poison. My fear was a physical thing, a cold weight in my stomach. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out, trying to pretend it was a dream. I must have drifted off, because the next thing I knew, I was waking up to a profound cold. The humming was gone. The calling was gone. The only sound was the crickets. But the door to our room, which we always kept shut, was wide open. Cold night air was pouring in. Cormac's bed was empty. The thin blanket was thrown back, pooled on the floor. And on the rough wooden planks leading from the side of his bed and out our open door was a trail, a thin, deliberate trail of damp, black soil and bits of crushed, dead leaves. My eyes followed it from his bed, out of our room, and toward the back of the house. Then I looked at his pillow. Resting right in the center, where his head should have been, was a small, screaming wooden figure.